The morning started the way it always did on Thanksgiving week, hands moving on their own, checking the list I'd taped to the cabinet, reaching for the last tray I planned to prep. The moment the freezer door swung open, everything stopped. The shelf where the turkey should have sat was bare. The pans of dressing the vegetables I'd chopped 2 nights earlier, every container I'd stacked and labeled gone without a trace. Only a thin layer of frost clung to the metal walls. I stepped back, scanning the counters as if the food might have migrated somewhere else. Nothing. The kitchen felt still in a way that made the hair on my arms lift. A half-pulled drawer caught my eye. Someone had handled it recently. The wooden edge sat crooked, the utensil tray shoved aside. "Hello." The call came out low, more habit than expectation. No answer. The lower fridge door hung ajar. A baking tray leaned against the shelf at an odd angle, crumbs scattered around it, as though someone grabbed whatever they needed and left before bothering to close anything. My stomach tightened. Someone had been here long enough to empty half a week's work. Reaching for my phone felt automatic. I tapped Emily's name. "Did you stop by last night?" Her tone sharpened. "Why would I was home. What's going on?" "I'm just asking if you used your code." "I told you I didn't. Can I go? I'm heading out." The line went dead before I formed the next word. Scrolling through the lock entry history took only seconds. A single timestamp blinked up at me, 13 a.m. Access granted with the code I'd given Emily when she needed to check on the house during a storm years ago. My thumb hovered over the screen while breath knotted in my chest. A dozen explanations tried to form. None held. She had sounded irritated, not surprised. The phone vibrated again, this time with a text from Marjorie. "Your lights were on real late. Everything all right?" The fact she'd noticed anything at all unsettled me more than the empty freezer. She didn't pry unless something felt off. I typed a short reply, "Working on something. Thanks for checking," and set the phone down. The trunk opened with a dull click. Nothing had shifted. The jumper cables sat where they always sat, the emergency kit still tucked against the side panel, the canvas bags folded neatly. No sign that anyone had touched the car. A small relief, though it didn't settle much. Passing Emily and Mark's SUV on the way back to the house, something caught my eye. A thermal bag lay tossed under their back seat, tipped on its side, like someone dropped it without thinking. A streak of dried gravy clung to the handle. My hand hovered for a moment, tempted to pick it up, but I stopped myself. Staring at it from the curb proved enough. The shape of the bag, the brand, even the faint stain, it all lined up too closely with what had once rested in my freezer. A slow breath pushed through my chest. The urge to march up to their door pulsed for a moment, then faded. Accusations without proof only made things worse in this family. So I headed home and turned to what I could verify. Logging into my Metropolitan Market account, I scrolled through the recent purchases. A new order appeared at the top, a tray of roasted vegetables, 2 pies, and extra pan of dressing. All placed at 2:19 a.m., charged under my account number. The time matched almost exactly with the lock entry record from earlier. My cursor hovered over the details. They had even used curbside pickup. The floor felt steadier than my thoughts. A part of me wanted to believe there was an explanation that didn't make Emily the culprit. Parents have a way of bargaining with themselves long after the evidence is clear. A knock came at the door, light but firm. Marjorie stood on the porch holding a small bag. "Thought you might want these. I had extra carrots," she said. Her expression shifted when she studied my face. "You look like you've been put through something." "Someone might have used my place as storage," I answered. "Not sure why." "You don't have to carry all that alone," she replied, handing over the bag. Her words landed somewhere deeper than I expected. Maybe because she didn't pry. Maybe because she said it without judgment. She nodded once and walked back toward her fence, leaving space for whatever came next. The house felt smaller when I stepped back in. A sense of intrusion hung there, subtle but unmistakable. I checked the kitchen this time, focusing on the cabinets. A few plastic containers sat in the wrong order. Lids didn't match the stacks. Someone had sifted through them carelessly. A thought pushed forward the neighbor's doorbell camera. Months earlier, he'd given me shared access after a string of break-ins around the block. Pulling up the feed, I skimmed through the early morning hours. A figure moved across my driveway carrying 2 bulky bags. Not much could be seen too far from the lens, but the posture, the quick steps, the way the shoulder dipped on one side, it mirrored Emily's gait. The same walk she'd had since she broke her ankle in high school. The screen dimmed as a notification slid across the top. Mark had posted something. Curiosity fought with dread before I tapped it open. The caption read, "Thanksgiving prep at the boss's house. Emily did it all." Below the text sat a row of dishes, my turkey, my dressing, my vegetables arranged on a long table under bright overhead lights. My jaw tightened. One part of me wanted to laugh at how bold it was. Another part felt something harsher, something close to humiliation. Work I'd put my back into had been hauled out of my freezer, dressed up as someone else's effort offered to impress a man I had never met. Emily stood beside the spread in the photo, head tilted, presenting it all with a smile that belonged to a different story than the one in my kitchen. The kind of smile people use when they pretend everything is fine. A pulse beat behind my eyes. Anger wasn't the right word. It felt too clean. What hit me was older than that, a slow burn of recognition. This wasn't the first time she'd borrowed from me to build an image of herself. It was just the first time she'd stepped this far over the line. The phone lowered in my hand. There weren't many choices left. The food had already been served, and the story had already been told on her terms. The only thing I could do now was see for myself exactly how far this performance had gone. I grabbed my keys again and headed for the car. The engine started with a low hum as I typed the address of the Gig Harbor property into the GPS. The route lit up on the screen, cutting across the bridge and into the waterfront district. My thumb tapped start, and the voice guidance came on. Cars lined both sides of the narrow drive as I pulled into the waterfront development. Every space near the main house was taken luxury models, stacked one after another. Through the open archway leading to the backyard, scattered voices drifted out, merging into a steady hum. The kind of sound people make when they feel sure nothing around them will go wrong. A long window faced the front walk. Passing by it, I caught sight of the buffet table. The layout stopped me in place. Each dish sat exactly where I had planned to place it at home, turkey-centered dressing to the right vegetables in a neat row, the pies anchoring the far end. Even the garnish matched what I'd prepped the night before. Emily stood nearby, talking animatedly to a tall man I assumed was her husband's boss. She gestured towards the food as she spoke, and he nodded appreciatively. The smile she wore stretched wider than any expression I had seen from her in months. "She spent all night on this," someone said behind them, laughing. Emily lifted her chin. "I wanted it perfect." My hand tightened around the doorknob by reflex. Stepping through the entrance, I waited for someone to notice me. No one did. Guests milled past, plates in hand, praising the dishes, while Emily kept thanking them. Mark spotted me first. He froze, eyes widening, then darted a nervous glance toward Emily. His lips moved without sound before he forced a smile and walked over. "Howard, didn't expect to see you here." "I can tell." Before he could respond, the man beside Emily approached us. You must be her father. I've heard a lot about the effort that went into this spread. He extended a hand. I'm Dan. Rather than take his hand, I looked towards the table. Those were cooked in my kitchen. He paused. Confusion flickered across his face. Emily stepped forward quickly. Wait, Dad, what are you doing? I said I took inspiration from you. Inspiration doesn't require using my account at Metropolitan Market, I replied, or my access code, or my freezer. Mark shifted, caught between us, sweat gathering at his hairline. Dan's brows drew together. Is that true? Did you two use your father's information to put this together? Mark stammered. I thought Emily told you. Emily cut him off. You were supposed to mention that he helped. Now it looks like we hid something. Her panic rose in her voice, louder with each sentence. Guests nearby slowed their steps, glancing over while pretending not to stare. The moment stretched as if everyone waited for someone else to speak. Dan turned back to Mark. Answer the question. Mark blinked, unable to form anything coherent. Emily nudged him hard. It wasn't a big deal, she insisted. Dad didn't care. He never cares when I borrow stuff. The words hit harder than I expected. Borrow. That was her word for it. I set the printed receipt on the corner of the table. This is the order placed under my name at 2:19 in the morning, and Mark's post claiming Emily cooked it all. Her face drained. Dad, why are you doing this right now? I'm not doing anything, I said. I'm stating what happened. Dan took a slow breath. Let's step outside, both of you, now. A couple of guests backed away, creating space like a ripple spreading across a pond. Emily's shoulders slumped as Dan guided her and Mark toward the side porch. The room didn't go silent, but the air shifted. People focused hard on their plates or their conversations, careful not to meet my eyes. Shame didn't land on me. It landed on the pair walking away with Dan. My hands felt steady as I picked up the receipt again. I didn't come for the food, I murmured, not sure who I was speaking to. I came for the truth. Emily glanced back, once a mixture of anger and disbelief twisting across her face. She looked like someone who'd tripped on a step she didn't think existed. The drive back toward Tacoma felt longer than usual. Halfway across the Narrows, my phone chimed with a message from Metropolitan Market. The order placed before dawn had been flagged, the account number matched mine, but the verification text had gone to Emily's phone. They wanted confirmation. If I didn't respond soon, the charge might be sent to their fraud department. The wheel grew heavier in my hands. One word from me could shield her. Another could expose her completely. That choice sat between my ribs, stubborn and unwelcome. A turnout appeared near the bridge, so I pulled in and cut the engine. The silence in the car left room for thoughts I'd been pushing aside. Protecting her had become second nature even when she didn't protect anything of mine. But taking responsibility for a transaction I never made could tangle me in a larger mess, one she wouldn't hesitate to walk away from if it stopped benefiting her. Before I had time to decide, the phone rang again. This time the caller ID showed the school district's HR office. Mr. Reeves. Yes. We received your request for extended leave. Since it's unusual for you, I wanted to verify before we process it. Leave? I hadn't asked for any. I didn't send that request, I said. Someone used my email. The woman on the line hesitated. Should we delete it and look into the login history? Please do, and let me know what you find. Hanging up left a strange tightness in my throat. A freezer full of food going missing could have been a bad decision or a desperate one. But forging a work request, that required intention, confidence, a belief that I wouldn't catch it or wouldn't challenge it if I did. The bridge hummed beneath the tires as the engine turned over again. Heading home, I replayed every odd moment from the past few months, missing mail, a couple of unexplained alerts from the bank, the time Emily asked to borrow a spare key because she lost hers and didn't want Mark to know. At the time, I didn't think twice. Pulling into the driveway, something felt off. The ceramic dish used for holding spare keys sat on the entry table, but the backup house key was gone. Only the car fob remained. A motion in the yard drew my attention. Marjorie stepped out from her walkway and waved. "Howard, are you okay?" "A car sat out here earlier, one I didn't recognize. It drove off when your lights came on." "Did you get a look at it?" "Dark sedan. Couldn't see the plates. Just thought you should know." She lingered, studying my expression. "You're dealing with more than you're saying, aren't you?" "I'm sorting it out," I answered. It was the closest thing to the truth I could manage. After she went back toward her porch, I locked the door and headed for the small desk where I kept old statements and account passwords. Flipping through a notebook, a notation from several months earlier caught my eye an alert about a login from an unknown device. At the time, I dismissed it as a glitch. Scrolling through the bank's security page now, the same device appeared again. The name assigned to it was familiar, the model Emily used before switching phones last spring. The system showed multiple logins spaced over weeks, all marked as previously approved. My pulse thudded once heavy. She must have logged in at some point while helping me sort tax folders, and the device was never removed. Or maybe she had logged in intentionally. The distinction mattered less than the pattern forming in front of me. The house felt smaller as I gathered receipt statements and the printout from the market. A picture formed one I hadn't wanted to see. The food she took was only the most visible part. The rest slipped past me in pieces. A code here, a login there, a key moved without asking. Each step small enough that I excused it. The folder in my hands had weight. Not physical weight, just the kind that comes from finally understanding something you'd been avoiding. Placing it on the kitchen table, I sank into a chair. A sense of imbalance spread through my chest, the kind that arrives when someone else has been steering your life without permission. The email arrived before sunrise. Fraud Prevention flagged the transaction from Thanksgiving morning and moved it into legal review. They wanted document statements and verification that the account belonged to me alone. Seeing my own name in a message questioning my identity left a strange hollowness under my ribs. A call to Emily went straight to voicemail. Another attempt met the same result. Mark eventually texted, "Sorry about last night. Everything's a mess." No offer to talk, no explanation. Just a sentence that floated somewhere between avoidance and guilt. The drive to the school took longer than usual, though traffic was light. A few co-workers nodded as I walked into the maintenance wing, their faces softening the way people react when they sense someone's worn down, but don't know if asking would make things worse. Tools needed checking, classrooms needed attention, yet none of the tasks anchored my focus. Thoughts drifted back to the freezer, the receipt, the lock code, the missing key. Each piece felt like a shove in the back, pushing me out of my own life, inch by inch. Around noon, my phone buzzed again. The bank's fraud line surfaced on the screen. "Mr. Reeves, we're calling about a request to raise your transfer limits. It came through this morning from an unrecognized device. Because it involved a high threshold, your account has been temporarily frozen." "I didn't request anything," I said. "None of it is mine." "We'll open an investigation. Please refrain from attempting transfers until we clear it." A dry swallow moved down my throat. The representative kept talking, outlining procedures, but my mind narrowed to one question. How far had Emily reached already? The break room offered a spot to sit, though it didn't bring rest. Marjorie joined a minute later with her lunch tray settling beside me, without asking permission, which was typical of her. You okay? She asked. The bank flagged something. I hesitated, then added, Someone tried to change my transfer limit. She set down her fork. If they carried out food from your house, they can carry out bigger things too. People don't start big, they warm up. A breath slipped out of me. I shouldn't have to guard myself from family. Families teach us our blind spots more than anyone else, she said. Even the ones we love. Her words didn't accuse. They simply named something I'd never wanted to name. She returned to her meal, giving space for the silence between us to stay grounded instead of heavy. The rest of the shift moved in slow steps. When the final bell rang, I headed to the parking lot. Mark waited near my truck, hands shoved deep into his jacket pockets. The look on his face told me he'd been rehearsing whatever he planned to say. Howard, can we talk? I'm listening. He cleared his throat. Emily wasn't trying to hurt you. She felt pressure. My boss, the team, the whole expectation thing. She thought a perfect dinner might help me look good. She didn't realize how far it'd go. She took everything I made, Mark. I know. And I should have stopped it. I messed up too. His eyes darted away, shifting towards the ground. She said you wouldn't mind, that you always said yes. Did she tell you the bank froze my account today? Did she mention the leave request sent under my name? His head snapped up. No, she didn't say anything about that. I didn't think she would. He moved closer. She's terrified, Howard. She feels like everything's falling apart. She needs a chance to explain. She had chances all morning, I said. Phone never came off voicemail. A long pause settled between us. Mark opened his mouth, shut it, then tried again. I'm asking you to give her some grace. Grace and secrecy aren't the same thing. He flinched. The truth often stings most when someone's been avoiding it. I'm not angry at you, I added. But you're trying to smooth things over without knowing the whole picture. His shoulders sagged. She's my wife. I'm trying to protect her. I'm her father. I've spent years doing the same thing. Another long breath left him thin and defeated. The call from Metropolitan Market came just after I unlocked the back door. A woman introduced herself, then cleared her throat in that careful way people do when they're about to deliver something uncomfortable. Mr. Reeves, one of our long-term customers, reached out this morning. She attended the Thanksgiving event at Mr. Manning's supervisor's home. She said your daughter mentioned the meal was ordered with your card because you wanted to support your son-in-law's career. We thought you should be aware. Her words landed one at a time, each heavier than the last. So Emily hadn't only taken the food, she built a story around it, a story that painted me as a willing sponsor for whatever ladder she hoped Mark would climb. Thank you for letting me know, I said. I'll follow up if I need additional details. Hanging up left the room, strangely still. Threads from the past few days began knitting themselves together in my mind, the door code used at 2 a.m, the extra order placed under my account, the leave request sent from my email, the bank freezing my funds. None of these things lived in separate corners anymore. Someone familiar with my routines had worked their way into them. Before I could process the call further, my phone pinged again. This time it was the fraud unit from the bank sending a preliminary report. The request to raise my transfer limit had come from a device registered months ago. The name of the device matched the phone Emily borrowed from me the year her mother died, my old backup handset. When she returned it, she said she wiped everything. She hadn't. A rush of cold clarity cut through the chaos. Finally, something tangible, evidence that pinpointed a device, a time, a method. Something that could protect my accounts. Something that might keep the situation from spiraling even further. That moment of relief barely settled before another notification appeared. Emily this time. The messages scrolled in faster than I could read them. Dad, why are you doing this? You're acting like I'm the enemy. Now Dan is questioning everything I said. I'm under a lot of pressure. You made it worse. You could have told him we worked on the food together. Mark should have spoken up. This is his mess, too. I can't believe you'd embarrass me like that. Dozens of sentences, each one flipping blame from one direction to another. The thread stretched so long my thumb cramped from scrolling. No apology. Not even a hint she understood what she'd crossed. Before I typed a single word back, the screen lit again, this time with Mark's name. Howard, I need to talk to you, he said the moment I answered. His voice wavered. Dan pulled me aside this morning. He says HR might get involved. They're looking at whether we misused your information. They're calling it a potential ethics issue. Did you tell them the truth? Mostly, he said, then corrected himself. I told them some of it. Emily's panicking. She thinks you're trying to ruin us. A tired breath moved through me. I'm trying to protect what's mine. He exhaled sharply. I know. But they're acting like I orchestrated the whole thing. I need you to understand she didn't think it'd get this big. She took my key. She accessed my accounts. She told strangers I volunteered to fund your boss's dinner. There was no noise on the other end, just breath and fear. I didn't know about the accounts, he whispered. I swear I didn't. I believe you, I said, and I did. Mark wasn't cunning enough to build something this layered. He always looked like he was 2 steps behind whatever Emily planned. He hesitated. What are you going to do? I'm still figuring that out. We didn't say goodbye. The call ended the way conversations end when no one wants to admit what comes next. Moving through the house felt strange. Rooms looked familiar, yet nothing felt secure. I walked into the garage to pull out old boxes of files, thinking I'd gather everything related to the bank and the market. One box was heavier than I remembered. At the bottom, under a stack of holiday decorations, lay something I didn't expect: my old backup phone. The one Emily returned years ago. I lifted it from the box. The plastic casing had a small crack down the side. My reflection skimmed across the dark screen. This was the device the bank traced, the one that tried to gain higher access to my money, the one tied to a login months earlier, the one Emily used long enough for it to stay linked to my accounts. Holding it brought no satisfaction, only a mix of dread and clarity. Because now I understood the next truth sitting just out of reach. This wasn't an accident or a single misjudgment. It was a trail. I pressed the power button. Nothing happened. The battery was dead. The backup phone felt heavier than it should have as I carried it into the bank. A representative met me near the service desk, and I handed it over without embellishing anything. This device triggered the limit change request, I asked. She reviewed the serial number, compared it to the alert, then nodded. Yes, sir. This is the exact phone. Our system logged attempts from it multiple times. Hearing someone else confirm what I already knew did something inside me. Not satisfaction, more like a steadying of ground beneath my feet. For weeks I'd been reacting, absorbing, trying to make sense of one blow after another. Now there was a piece of truth I could hold up without flinching. After that, I drove to Metropolitan Market to deliver the same device. Their manager thanked me, scanned the information, and said, "We'll include this in the fraud file. It clarifies a lot." Clarifies. A gentle word for something that had detonated in the middle of my life. Mark's name flashed on my phone 7 times before noon. I didn't answer. He left voicemails, each more strained than the last. "Howard, please. She's falling apart." She didn't think this would snowball. "Don't let this go any further. We can fix it." The voicemails blurred together. Not once did he say she was taking responsibility, only that she feared consequences. The house felt still when I returned home, and I set the phone Emily once used on the counter. Before I could pour myself water, another call came, this one from an unfamiliar number. "Mr. Reeves. This is Dan Willoughby, Mark's supervisor. I wanted to ask something directly. Your daughter said you authorized the charges and encouraged her to help with the dinner because you wanted Mark to stand out. Is that accurate?" I leaned on the counter. "No, I never approved any use of my accounts. My home was accessed without permission. Every dish she brought was cooked by me, not her, and none of it was meant for your event." Silence stretched long enough that I wondered if he'd hung up. Finally, he spoke. "Thank you for being straightforward. That helps me understand what's happening on my end." He didn't say more. He didn't need to. Something had shifted in the way he said "understand" a door closing behind Emily, whether she realized it or not. The phone buzzed again a few hours later, this time a local police line. "Mr. Reeves, we're calling because a request has been opened to review suspicious activity involving your personal information. Since documentation indicates unauthorized access, we'll begin preliminary checks. We'll keep you updated." Their tone was courteous, procedural, nothing dramatic. Yet the moment I ended the call, my pulse beat in a slow, heavy rhythm. Things had passed the point where family disagreements could be patched up with an apology or a tense dinner. A new message arrived from Emily not long after. "Dad, if you let this continue, what's left of our family?" Another followed. "You're choosing strangers over your own daughter." Then a third. "Why are you punishing me? I didn't do anything that bad." My thumb hovered over the keyboard. The urge to write something measured, something that softened the truth, stirred out of habit. Years of cushioning her from consequences tried to take the wheel. But that instinct wasn't welcome anymore. I typed one line. "Family isn't a reason to take what belongs to me." Her typing bubbles appeared, then vanished. No reply came. Evening settled in. I collected the documents left on the table and returned them to a folder, fingers moving slower than usual. Walking to the front door, I checked the lock, turned the deadbolt, then tested it again. Not out of fear, just a reminder that the boundary now mattered. Morning came earlier than I expected. No heaviness pressed against my chest, no sense of bracing for whatever might break next. The house felt steady. After washing up, I grabbed my coat and headed to the market with a list short, simple, meant only for one table and no one's performance. Walking through the aisles, I chose things at a pace that matched my breathing. A smaller turkey breast instead of a whole bird. Vegetables enough for a few plates. A pie I didn't have to justify or defend. When the cashier bagged everything, she offered a polite greeting, unaware of anything unusual. That normalcy felt like a gift. Back home, an email from the bank showed up. My accounts were secure again. They'd finished the preliminary review and confirmed the breach came from the old device. The message also mentioned responsibility assignment, a phrase that said enough without naming Emily outright. They would be contacting her next. No messages from Mark. I didn't expect any. Sometimes silence is what remains when everyone knows the truth, and no one wants to say it out loud. By late afternoon, the kitchen filled with the steady rhythm of cooking. This time nothing was rushed or borrowed or meant to impress anyone. The turkey roasted evenly, the dressing settled the way it should, and the vegetables browned without fuss. A small meal, but it felt grounded mine in a way I hadn't experienced during any holiday in years. A knock came around 5. Marjorie stepped in holding a loaf of bread. "Thought you might need this," she said. "A full table looks better with something warm on it." Behind her came 2 neighbors' folks who rarely intruded, but always greeted me in passing. They brought a salad, a bottle of sparkling cider, and easy conversation. We sat around the modest table. No one tried to fill the air with forced comfort. People ate, commented on the food, asked about work, joked about the neighborhood watch. The kind of talk that builds community without ever claiming to fix anything. Halfway through the meal, my phone buzzed on the counter. I checked it briefly, an email from Metropolitan Market. Your disputed transaction has been resolved. You are no longer associated with the unauthorized order. Something unwound in my chest as I put the phone face down. No one asked about it, and I didn't offer an explanation. After dessert, the neighbors helped stack plates near the sink before heading out. Marjorie lingered at the doorway. "Good meal," she said. "You ought to make it a tradition cooking for people who actually want to be here." I smiled slightly. "Maybe I will." She squeezed my arm once and left without another word. The house settled into a soft stillness once the door closed. I gathered the leftovers and portioned them into containers, something I'd done thousands of times, though it felt different now. Each scoop reminded me that none of the food would disappear once my back was turned. No one would claim it for their own story, and no one would use my effort to dress up their ambition. One container after another filled the counter. I sealed the lids, stacked them neatly, and placed a few in the fridge before setting the rest in the freezer. The simple repetition steadied me far more than the meal had. A glance around the room showed nothing extraordinary, just a modest kitchen after a small gathering. Yet something in the air felt reclaimed. Not triumphant, not proud, just right. As I wiped down the counter, a thought drifted in with surprising ease. This was the first holiday I'd hosted solely for myself and people who respected the space they were in. Nothing borrowed. Nothing taken. Nothing rearranged behind my back. The last container clicked shut beneath my palms. I slid it into place, not rushing the motion, letting it land where it belonged. For the first time in a long while, the life in front of me felt like something I owned again, piece by piece, choice by choice, no longer shaped by someone else's need.